The rain hammered down as if determined to drown New York. Headlights sliced through sheets of water, shattering into fragments that glittered across the uneven pavement like shards of broken glass. Inside a dim corner cafe, the scent of bitter espresso mingled with the damp of soaked coats, and Elena Ramirez sat frozen, eyes fixed on the paper in her hands. Terminated for cause. 3 words, as final and heavy as a gavel's strike. Her grip tightened until the paper buckled, ink smudging beneath the sweat of her trembling palms. Is this all my years of fighting for the truth are worth? Just a letter that erases me? Elena's thoughts choked in her throat. The cafe door swung open, wind and rain gusting inside, carrying with them a memory. The voice of Nora Alvarez, her former colleague, replayed in her mind. You knew this would happen, Elena. Nobody at the paper will ever stand against the investors. They want ads, not truth. Elena's lips curved into a bitter smile. Yes, she had known. But when the documents landed on her desk, numbers proving a corporation was cutting corners, mixing cheap filler into the concrete for a 40-story Brooklyn tower, she couldn't turn away. If that building falls, hundreds will die. Better to lose everything than live as an accomplice. But the cost was brutal. Losing her job meant more than the death of a career she had bled for. It meant the collapse of everything she carried for Maya, her younger sister. Maya was 20, studying fine arts. Since the car crash that had taken their parents, Elena had been sister, guardian, provider. Every tuition bill, every rent payment for Maya's small apartment near campus, all of it weighed on her shoulders. Don't worry, Elena. I'll get a part-time job. I can manage on my own, Maya had said days earlier, her eyes still too innocent for such burdens. But Elena knew better. Maya deserved a youth untainted by struggle, a chance to dream without chains. Elena couldn't let her face the same harshness that had shaped her own life. Her phone chimed, slicing through the heavy quiet. A bank notification flashed. Balance negative. Payment overdue. Elena bit her lip until she tasted blood. Rent in Queens was due in a week. Next semester's tuition hadn't been paid. Her last savings had been drained into legal fees, an unwinnable battle against her paper's decision. She stared out the window. Rain trailed down the glass like tears shed by a grieving sky. Her voice trembled in a whisper, meant only for herself. What am I supposed to do? Maya, how am I supposed to keep you safe? No answer came. Only the relentless tapping of rain, steady and merciless, echoing her despair. Elena unfolded the paper again. The words, terminated for cause, seemed to carve deeper with every glance, as if intent on erasing who she once was. In that moment, she understood. Her path had veered into a darkness from which there was no return. The next morning, New York still glistened from the night's storm. Elena sat by the window of her small Queens apartment, watching droplets slide down the chipped sill. On the table lay a mountain of bills: electricity, water, rent, and most crushing of all, Maya's unpaid tuition notice. Her phone buzzed. It was Maya. Elena, I'm on my way to class. Don't forget to eat breakfast, okay? Her voice was light, carefree, untouched by the storm hovering over their lives. Elena swallowed hard, forcing her tone steady. I will. Just focus on your studies. Don't worry about anything else. But when the call ended, tears spilled silently down her cheeks. How much longer can I keep protecting her? Elena thought. The bank account was in the red, credit cards maxed out. She had sold nearly everything of value in the apartment. Ahead stretched nothing but a suffocating darkness. A soft knock at the door. Nora Alvarez stepped in, umbrella dripping, a hot coffee in hand. She set it on the table and sat across from Elena. "Elena, listen." Nora hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "I found something, but it's strange." Elena raised a brow. "Strange how?" Nora turned the screen toward her. A LinkedIn posting read, "Personal coordinator for Damian Cole, full-time, immediate start. Salary $12,000 per month." Elena let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. $12,000? A month? That screams scam. "Maybe," Nora shrugged. "But I think you don't have many options left." Elena stared at the number. 12,000. Enough to cover rent, to secure Maya's tuition, to buy her a few precious months of breathing room. Yet her chest tightened. A salary like that can't be clean. There has to be something dark hidden behind it. Nora placed her hand gently over Elena's. "I know you're afraid, but Elena, desperation forces choices. Think about Maya." Elena turned toward the window. The rain had started again, a soft drizzle tapping against the glass like a drumbeat urging her forward. She drew a shaky breath, whispering almost inaudibly, "Send me the link. I don't have another choice." The following day, New York skies hung heavy with gray, clouds sagging low as if foreshadowing trials ahead. Elena stood before the towering black iron gates of Cole Estate, a sprawling mansion hidden within the wealth of the Upper East Side. She drew a deep breath, palms slick with sweat despite the winter chill. A small suitcase trembled in her left hand with every beat of her heart. $12,000 a month. Salvation, or a trap I'm walking straight into. When Elena pressed the bell, the gates swung open soundlessly, an invitation and a warning all at once. The marble-paved pathway stretched forward in perfect symmetry, flanked by rows of meticulously trimmed maples, not a branch out of place. At the grand entrance, two massive white stone lions loomed, their stares fixed and unyielding, guardians judging every stranger. "Welcome, Ms. Ramirez." A deep male voice carried through the intercom, courteous yet commanding. "I am Victor Hale, Chief of Staff. Please come in." Elena stepped forward, the sharp click of her heels echoing through the vast courtyard, making her feel small against the expanse. At the top of the steps, a man in his 50s awaited her. His suit was impeccably tailored, his demeanor calm, yet his eyes sharp with authority. "Pleasure to meet you," he said, extending his hand. "Victor Hale." "Thank you for the opportunity," Elena replied, shaking his hand, her palm cold against his steady grip. Victor inclined his head slightly and led her inside. The heavy oak doors swung open to reveal a grand hall, soaring ceilings adorned with glittering chandeliers, spiral marble staircases, oil paintings lining the walls in solemn procession. Every detail whispered one message: "This world is not yours." They stopped before a pair of towering mahogany doors. Victor knocked 3 times, light yet firm. From within came a voice, deep and steady, resonant with authority. "Come in." Elena's chest tightened. She adjusted her coat, steadied her breath, and crossed the threshold. The study was larger than her entire queen's apartment. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls. A marble fireplace glowed faintly. A Persian rug stretched across the floor. Yet all of it faded before the presence of the man behind the massive walnut desk. Damian Cole. Mid-30s, tall, broad-shouldered, with slightly wavy black hair and steel-gray eyes that carried the weight of command. He didn't look up at once. His pen continued across the page, each stroke sounding like a clock ticking down. Elena stood, waiting, like a student summoned before a master. At last, Damian lifted his gaze. His gray eyes swept over her, quick, cold, piercing, as if stripping away every facade to see what lay beneath. "Sit." He gestured to the leather chair opposite. Elena swallowed hard, stepped forward, and lowered herself into the seat, fingers tightly interlaced to conceal their trembling. In that moment, she knew she had stepped into a world entirely unlike her own, and once inside, there would be no turning back. The air inside the study grew so heavy Elena could barely breathe. Damian Cole closed the file on his desk without another word, pressing a small button at the side of his chair. The door swung open. Victor Hale entered, posture crisp and deliberate. "It's time," Damian said curtly. No explanation offered. Victor nodded and turned to Elena. "Please follow me." Elena rose, her heartbeat thundering in her chest. Her grip tightened on the strap of her bag, a chill of dread stirring within. "Yeah, what are they going to do to me? I came here for a job interview. Why does this feel like being led into an interrogation chamber?" The hallway stretched long and bright, lit by immaculate lamps, yet so silent that each of her footsteps echoed like a warning. As they descended deeper, the air grew colder. Victor walked ahead, steady, unyielding, as though guiding her toward a place from which there was no return. At last, he stopped before a massive steel door. A swipe of his access card, a click, and the door eased open with a hiss. Inside was a room blindingly white, sterile to the point of cruelty. At the center stood a metal table, a few chairs, and unfamiliar machines lined neatly against the walls. Waiting was a woman in her 40s, blonde hair tied back, clad in a pristine white lab coat. "Elena Ramirez," she called, voice sharp and controlled. "I am Dr. Evelyn Cross, head of medical security. Today I will conduct your screening." "Screening?" Elena forced her voice steady. "What do you mean?" "Background, health, and compliance checks," Evelyn replied without hesitation. "Anyone working directly for Mr. Cole must meet absolute standards. No drugs, no communicable diseases, no lies." Elena stiffened. "Is that really necessary?" "If you refuse," Evelyn cut in instantly, "the interview ends here. And trust me, you won't get a second chance." The air froze around her. Elena's mind flashed to Maya, to unpaid tuition, to the apartment on the brink of eviction. She drew a long breath. "All right," Evelyn signaled. An assistant immediately sifted through Elena's bag, then swept a metal detector across her body. Blood was drawn, urine sampled, fingerprints taken, her iris scanned. Elena sat rigid, her body taut like a string pulled to breaking, her pulse pounding in her ears. Each procedure was precise, clinical, devoid of empathy. She felt less like an applicant and more like a criminal under surveillance. Final step. Evelyn slid a dense document across the table. "This is a non-disclosure agreement. By signing, you acknowledge that everything within Cole Estate, including Mr. Cole's personal matters, must remain secret forever. Breach it." Her eyes sharpened like the edge of a blade. "The consequences will go far beyond your imagination." Elena lifted the pen. Her hand shook so violently the letters crawled across the page. When she set the pen down, emptiness washed over her. "I've crossed the threshold. There's no going back." Evelyn studied her in silence, then gave a slight nod. "Good. You understand what you've committed to." The door opened once more. Victor appeared, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Cole is waiting. Please return to the study." Elena rose, her steps heavy. As she left the sterile white room, one thought pounded in her mind. This path, there is no turning back. Elena returned to the study with heavy steps, each footfall echoing against the wooden floor like the knock of fate. As the door closed behind her, she saw Damian Cole standing before the tall window, his back turned. A glass of red wine glimmered in his hand, the dim afternoon light casting his figure in deep shadow. "You signed?" His voice carried across the room, low and firm. Elena swallowed hard. "Yes." Damian turned, steel-gray eyes locking onto hers. He set the glass down and slowly crossed the room to the desk. "Good. Then let's discuss the job." He seated himself, arms folded. "This position is not merely an assistant role. I need someone to coordinate every detail of my life and work, my schedule, meetings, social events, even the smallest decisions. In simple terms, you will be my extended arm, the keeper of order in chaos." Elena frowned slightly. "You want me to manage both business and personal matters?" "Correct," Damian replied without pause, "which means you will have no personal time. This is a full-time commitment, 7 days a week. I demand absolute loyalty and the ability to handle crises instantly." Elena drew a long breath. That sounds more like an executive manager than a personal assistant. A faint curve touched Damian's lips, a rare, fleeting smile. "You're quick to notice, but the title doesn't matter. What matters is whether you can endure the pressure." He opened a drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and slid it across to her. "This is the contract. $12,000 a month. All living expenses covered. You'll have a private apartment here in Cole Estate. But know this, if you leave before 6 months, you'll pay double in penalties." Elena stared at the figures. 12,000. She had never dared to dream of such a salary. Yet the terms read like a trap, closing around her with no escape. "Mr. Cole," she hesitated. "Why me? I have no experience in this kind of role." Damian's silence stretched a beat before his eyes sharpened, cutting through the air. "Because you're not like the others. You have principles, and principles can't be bought." A shiver ran through Elena. In that moment, she realized this contract was not just a job. It was a covenant with fate itself. Elena's first day at Cole Estate began at 6 o'clock in the morning, when the sky over New York was still veiled in mist. Victor Hale was already waiting in the corridor, a sleek tablet glinting in his hand. "This is the entire internal management system," he said, his voice steady yet authoritative. "Mr. Cole's schedule is calibrated to the minute. A delay of even 30 seconds is unacceptable." Elena took the device, scanning the dense blocks of text. Board meetings, transatlantic calls with Europe, charity galas, even Damian's private gym sessions. Every square of the calendar fit tightly like bricks in a wall, leaving no space to breathe. How can any human being survive this?" she murmured. Victor's gaze cut to her, sharp. "Mr. Cole doesn't merely survive, he exists to command, and your task is to ensure that command never falters." That morning, Elena was pulled into a relentless whirl. The proprietary software she had to master logged everything: calls, emails, even Damian's sleeping patterns. One misplaced tap could throw the entire system into chaos. By afternoon, she was led to the HR office where junior assistants waited. Their stares were laced with skepticism. One whispered, "Wasn't she a jobless journalist? And now she's our superior?" A ripple of half-suppressed laughter followed. Elena's chest tightened, but she kept her smile calm. "I know you doubt me, but I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to work. And if we move forward together, we can succeed." Silence answered her, broken only by the clatter of keyboards. Elena understood. Respect here was never given. It had to be earned. In the days that followed, she plunged deeper into the storm. She reorganized tangled schedules, streamlined travel routes, and uncovered a looming disaster. A charity gala was double-booked with a crucial shareholders' meeting. Left unchecked, Damian would be forced to choose between financial loss or public disgrace. Elena threw herself into calculations. She rescheduled the meeting, reshuffled travel plans, and established a dual communication setup that allowed Damian to attend both. When she presented the solution to Victor, his brow lifted slightly. Impressive. Perhaps you're more than just a journalist. That night, the clock struck 11 o'clock, and Elena was still in her small office, eyes stinging with fatigue, fingers moving tirelessly across the screen. The door opened unexpectedly. Damian entered, the desk lamp casting cold light into his steel-gray eyes. "You're still here?" His tone was low, unreadable, neither reproach nor approval. Elena looked up, her voice steady. "The work isn't finished, so I can't leave." The silence stretched, thick and weighty. Then the faintest curve touched Damian's lips. Not quite a smile, not quite disapproval. "I despise weakness, Elena, but I respect resolve. Do not let me down." He turned and left, the air behind him heavy with unspoken weight. Elena sat frozen, heart pounding like a drum. In that fleeting clash of eyes, she understood. Between the summit of his power and the depths where she stood, an invisible thread had begun to form. On Saturday afternoon, Elena received a message from Victor. "Tonight, you will accompany Mr. Cole to the charity gala at the Plaza Hotel. Be prepared." Her heart raced for the rest of the day. This wasn't just a gala. It was her first public appearance at Damian's side, under the scrutiny of New York's financial and media elite. When the sleek black limousine rolled to a stop in front of the hotel, camera flashes erupted like lightning. Damian stepped out first, tall and commanding in a tailored black tuxedo. He turned back, extending his hand toward Elena. She placed hers in his and emerged. Her long black gown was elegant, minimalist, yet magnetic. Damian's hand rested lightly on her arm, not intimate, but enough to assert her place beside him. Instantly, eyes turned. Whispers rippled, some curious, others skeptical. But when Damian introduced her, his voice carried over the crowd. "This is Elena Ramirez, my executive coordinator." The title made Elena straighten her spine. For a moment, the murmurs fell silent. Throughout the evening, she remained at Damian's side. When conversations dragged, she gently steered them forward. When documents required signatures, she produced them without delay. When a waiter nearly spilled red wine onto Damian's tuxedo, she steadied the tray just in time. Every action was seamless, as if she had been in this role for years. But not everyone was gracious. A group of young businessmen, emboldened by drink, began tossing crude remarks as Elena passed. "Executive coordinator?" One sneered. "Never heard of such a title? Or maybe Mr. Cole just invented a polished name for another kind of role?" Laughter erupted. The man stepped closer, eyes glinting, his hand reaching toward Elena's arm. Elena's smile remained polite, but her voice cut sharp. "Perhaps Mr. Cole values precision above all else, and that happens to be my role." Before the man could respond, a firm hand gripped his shoulder, yanking him back. Damian stood there, steel-gray eyes like ice. "That's enough," he said softly, but his tone sliced like a blade. The air froze. The man retreated instantly, his smirk gone. Damian didn't glance at Elena, simply resumed his conversation as though nothing had happened. But Elena knew. He had been watching her all along. The gala drew to a close. Inside the limousine back to Cole Estate, silence lingered until the city lights shimmered past the windows. Finally, Damian spoke. "You did well, composed, appropriate, keep that demeanor." Elena only nodded, but inside a quiet flame of certainty burned. This was no longer just a test. It was the first step in proving she truly belonged at his side. Just days after the gala, Elena was reviewing the week's schedule when an urgent knock rattled the door. Victor entered, his face unusually grave. "Mr. Cole needs you immediately. It's critical." Elena's chest tightened. She followed Victor into the study. Damian stood by the desk, phone pressed to his ear, his expression composed but his jaw clenched. When the call ended, he turned, steel-gray eyes edged with rare concern. "We're flying to Miami, 1 hour. Prepare everything." Elena didn't ask why. She moved quickly, booking a private flight, packing essentials, alerting the staff. In the limousine racing toward the airport, silence pressed thick, broken only by the rustle of papers in Damian's hands. Finally, Elena ventured, "What happened?" Damian's voice dropped, heavy. "Atlas Dynamics, one of my primary partners, is under federal investigation for money laundering. If they collapse, I could lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Worse, my reputation will go down with them." Elena froze. This was no longer about schedules or galas. This was a battlefield where one wrong choice could topple an empire. Miami greeted them with blazing sun, but the atmosphere inside Cole Global's branch was tense, suffocating. An emergency meeting convened that very night. Elena sat quietly in the corner, taking notes while executives clashed. "We must sever ties immediately." The chief financial officer slammed the table. "If Atlas's accounts are frozen, every joint project collapses. Our stock will plummet." Another shot back. "Cutting too fast makes us look guilty. The media will assume we're complicit. We need time to manage the narrative." Voices rose, arguments colliding. Damian remained still, fingers steepled, gaze fixed as though the weight of the building bore down on him. When the meeting adjourned near midnight, he remained seated, unmoving. Elena quietly set a cup of coffee before him. "You need a break." Damian looked up, his eyes weary in a way she had never seen. His voice rasped, "Elena, what do you think I should do?" The question stunned her. This man, who commanded boardrooms, was asking her. She steadied herself. "If you cut ties immediately, partners will fear you're fickle. If you stay silent, the press will assume complicity. The only way forward is to act first." Damian leaned closer, brows furrowed. "Specifically?" "Publicly dissolve every project connected to Atlas. At the same time, announce a restructuring plan to prove Cole Global is transparent and in control. You'll lose capital, but preserve your reputation. And in this world, reputation is worth more than money." Damian studied her, something flickering in his eyes. Then he gave a slight nod. "You speak more directly than executives who've served me for 10 years. The next morning, Damian did exactly as Elena advised. A press release announced Cole Global was dissolving all Atlas-related projects, paired with a sweeping restructuring initiative. Media erupted. Shares dipped briefly, then rebounded swiftly. Headlines praised Damian's transparency and decisiveness. That night, Elena found him in the temporary office of the hotel. Only a desk lamp lit the room, shadows etched across his face. His tie hung loose, eyes ringed with fatigue. "You did the right thing," Elena said softly. Damian looked up, his voice heavy. Sometimes I wonder, is it worth it? The power, the money, traded for sleepless nights, endless suspicion. I'm tired, Elena. She sat across from him, her tone firm yet gentle. And the most valuable thing you still hold is trust, and no one can buy that. Their eyes locked. In that instant, Elena saw not a mogul draped in power, but a man burdened by his empire. And Damian, in her gaze, found something he had long lost: steadiness, strength, and the rare comfort of being truly seen. The Miami trip ended, but its weight lingered as they returned to New York. Damian slipped back into his familiar mask of cold authority. In meetings, his commands were sharp, his presence unyielding. Yet Elena sensed it. An invisible wall now stood between them. Those rare glimpses she had seen in Miami, the weary eyes, the fragile voice, were gone, erased as though they had never existed. One late evening, with most of Cole Estate dark and silent, Elena gathered her courage and knocked on the study door. Inside, Damian stood by the liquor cabinet, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. "Are you avoiding me?" Elena asked bluntly, her voice trembling yet firm. Damian paused, then turned. His steel-gray eyes flickered before hardening again. "I don't want to repeat my mistakes. In this world, everyone wants something from me: money, power. I cannot allow myself to be blinded again." Elena stepped closer, her tone steady. "I don't want your money, Damian. If that was all, I would have left long ago. I stay because of who you truly are." Silence stretched, so heavy she could hear the ticking of the clock. Damian gripped his glass tightly, gaze locked on her. For a heartbeat, Elena thought the wall was breaking, but he said nothing, clinging to distance. Before she could speak again, her phone buzzed. Maya's name lit the screen. Elena answered, and her sister's broken voice poured out. "Elena, it's gone. The tuition money for this semester. All of it. I was scammed. Some fake scholarship site. I don't know what to do." Elena's world caved in. Her hand shook violently, her breath catching. Everything she had saved to keep Maya in school had vanished. That night, she went to Damian, her face pale. His gaze softened the moment he saw her. "What happened?" Elena swallowed hard, her voice unsteady. "Maya, her tuition. Every cent is gone. I have no other choice. I need your help." Without hesitation, Damian picked up the phone, calling his financial advisor. "By tomorrow, Maya's tuition will be paid. You don't need to worry." Tears stung Elena's eyes, but she quickly insisted, "I will pay you back, Damian. However long it takes, I'll repay every cent." Damian studied her, his eyes dark and unreadable. So many had sought him out for money, for power. Yet Elena, even in desperation, still promised to return it all. In that instant, he knew she was unlike anyone else. Maya's tuition was settled swiftly. The next morning, Elena received a call from her sister, Maya's voice breaking with joy. "Elena, they confirmed it. The tuition is fully paid. I don't know what to say, except thank you. You and Mr. Cole saved me." Elena smiled, though tears slipped down her cheeks. In that moment, she knew her life had veered onto a path she could never have imagined a year ago. That afternoon, with the day's work finally quieting, Damian invited Elena into the gardens of Cole Estate. Sunset painted gold across the perfectly trimmed hedges, small lanterns glowing along the gravel path. The air was peaceful, though Elena's heart raced wildly. Damian stopped beneath an arbor of flowers, his hands clasped behind his back, his voice low. "Elena, for months I've kept my distance. I feared repeating old mistakes. In this world, affection is often just a mask for ambition. He turned, steel gray eyes locking onto hers. But you've proven yourself different. Even in desperation, you promised to repay every cent. You don't want money or power. What you care about is truth and the people you love. Elena's throat tightened. Words failed her. Yet she stepped closer, her voice trembling. Damian, I never wanted anything from you. The only thing I want is the truth in your heart. In that moment, the invisible wall between them shattered. Damian lowered his head, his lips brushing softly against hers. The kiss was neither hurried nor fierce, but deep, like a vow spoken without words. Elena closed her eyes, her heartbeat thundering. All the doubts and fears melted away. Only one certainty remained. From this moment on, they were no longer just employer and employee. When they parted, Damian's voice was steady, yet vulnerable. I cannot promise this road will be easy, but if you stay, Elena, I will never let you walk it alone. Tears welled in Elena's eyes, but she smiled. I've already chosen this road, Damian, and I will not turn back. Beneath the lantern glow, with the garden bathed in gold, they were no longer two people from different worlds. They were two souls who had found each other in the shadows of power and the light of trust. 6 months had passed since Elena first stepped into Cole Estate, and her life had transformed beyond recognition. From an unemployed journalist struggling against despair, she now sat in the grand boardroom of Cole Global as Director of Special Projects, a title Damian himself announced during a company-wide meeting. That day, Damian stood at the podium, his voice resonant, his gaze sharp and unwavering. Elena Ramirez has proven her ability, her strength, and her absolute loyalty. She will serve as Director of Special Projects and report directly to me. Applause thundered through the room. Elena sat with trembling hands but a blazing heart. She was no longer merely a shadow at Damian's side. She was recognized as part of the empire itself. The whispers that once haunted the hallways had faded. She's only favored because she's close to Mr. Cole. But 6 months had proved otherwise. Elena had managed high-level events, overseen complex projects, and proposed bold strategies that kept Cole Global steady after the Miami crisis. Gradually, even the harshest skeptics bowed to her merit. Beyond the office, her relationship with Damian had evolved. In meetings, they were colleagues, debating fiercely, pointing out flaws without hesitation. But behind closed doors, they were simply two people, sharing dinners in the garden, strolling beneath lantern light, or sitting in silence together in the library. Damian had changed. Once cold and guarded, suspicious of all, he had learned to trust. He gave Elena decision-making power, granting her a faith he had never placed in anyone else. For Elena, these 6 months transformed her from an outcast into an essential part of Cole Global and of Damian's life. One evening, as they stood by the highest window of Cole Estate, the city's lights spread below them like an ocean of stars. Damian spoke softly. You're no longer the one standing behind, Elena. You are part of this empire, and a part of me. Elena looked at him, her heart swelling. 6 months, just half a year, had turned strangers into companions. Amid trials and shadows, they had found each other. Late one evening in the office, with the city lights glittering against the tall windows, Damian laid a thick dossier on the desk. Elena, he began, his tone calm but his eyes blazing with unusual intensity. I've received an opportunity. Cole Global can expand into Europe, beginning with London. This project could shape the next decade. He paused, then spoke slowly. I want you with me, not only as a director, but as a partner. You will own 20% of the new branch. Elena froze. His words opened a door into an entirely new world, a monumental step not just for her career, but for their relationship. Yet her chest tightened instantly. Maya was still in New York. Elena couldn't simply leave her behind. What about Maya? She whispered, her voice trembling. Damian said nothing, leaving her to confront the weight of her choice. The next day, Elena told Maya in a small cafe near campus. Her sister smiled through tears, her eyes steady. You've sacrificed too much for me already, Elena. Now it's your turn. I'll be fine. Go. Chase your happiness. Those words lifted the last weight from Elena's heart. She returned to Cole Estate, stepping into the study where Damian stood by the window, steel-gray eyes reflecting the night. I'll go, she said firmly. I'll start this new journey in London with you. Damian turned, a rare, meaningful smile touching his lips. Then a new chapter begins, for Cole Global and for us. The following week became a storm of preparations. Contracts, staffing, logistics, all consuming. Yet every time Elena looked at Damian, she knew this was not just business. It was a choice, binding her life to his, not only through work, but through love. On the flight to London, with the night sky stretching endlessly beyond the window, Damian reached for her hand. For the first time, he didn't hold back. Elena smiled, and in that moment, she knew she had chosen right. London unfolded before Elena like a canvas painted in both history and modernity. Gray stone buildings stood solemn beside glittering neon lights, while crowds hurried along cobblestone streets. Cole Global Europe had its headquarters in a sleek glass tower in the city center, where Elena now walked in each morning as a partner and director in her own right. On the first day in the new office, when the curtain dropped from the plaque reading Cole Global Europe, Damian turned to her, pride and warmth in his eyes. We've begun, Elena. This isn't just my company anymore. It's yours too. From that moment, their rhythm shifted completely. By day, Elena plunged into strategic meetings, negotiating with European conglomerates, enduring hours-long discussions that tested every ounce of focus. Her sharp instincts surprised many. No longer was she dismissed as the favored assistant. She became an essential voice in every major decision. By evening, after the storm of boardrooms, they returned to their modest yet elegant flat in South Kensington. It wasn't as grand as Cole Estate, but it was warm, intimate theirs. Elena often cooked simple dinners, sometimes just pasta with wine. They strolled hand in hand through Hyde Park, letting the night wind carry away the weight of the day. Damian changed too. No longer a man hidden behind the mask of power, in London he allowed himself to live, smiling more, sharing more, at times even showing his fatigue. And Elena, for the first time, saw him not as a solitary figure atop an empire, but as a man who no longer had to stand alone. One evening, as they stood on Westminster Bridge watching the Thames shimmer under the lights, Damian said softly, "There were times I forgot what peace felt like. But here, with you, I found it again." Elena tightened her grip on his hand. "And I've found my strength in you."